God, I hope not. And if that's the case, maybe it's time to get out of the game. I know this trend, and personally, I loathe this trend. I can understand there are certain reasons why things started to be simplified, why they started to be like flat design rather than 3D design that we had, why we dropped the serifs and some of the intricate beauty around typeface choices and logo types. Although I personally feel that it's gotten to the point where it's just become bland. And even you can walk down the high street, if you walk down one of the very glitzy shopping streets in your city, and all of the luxury brands, they have the exact same logo now. And if their products aren't really that much distinguished from each other, and the brand isn't, what's the point? I'm very much like I'm a firm believer in branding and the power of that to resonate through users, and that branding should resonate through every single different touch point, the whole service design experience. And I feel that we are getting to the point where it's become a little bit white labeled, and that's sad. We could look at that in terms of architecture, industrial design as well. And at least in those regards, I think they arrived at an extremely like minimalist place, realized the errors of their ways, and have started to try to correct them. So my prediction, and we can see if it comes true in the future, is that perhaps we've reached the depth of this consolidation and stripping back of history and identity, and that we'll start to move in the other direction in the next few years. But I hope so, but time will tell. We've had a couple of projects recently where we're working with companies that are either adding AI features to existing products or they're building an AI first product. And I would say that's one of the main differentiators that over the past couple of years, we've all become very accustomed to our normal tools and applications that we use in our day-to-day workflow. All of a sudden, there's a little sprinkling of the AI magic dust in there, and there's a couple of new features pop up here and there. And maybe this is going to be slightly controversial, but some of them, they're not well thought out. I'm not sure if it's really enhancing your experience or in making you more efficient. It's rather we are in this AI wave and everybody has the FOMO that they'll miss this. And so in one regard, I feel that not all of it is necessary, or we're still like testing the waters of which one of these features, which one of these tools will actually become sticky and users will become fond with over time. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, we have AI first tools, and I think the difference between them is huge. The AI first tools, this is really looking at the technology and trying to build brand new products around this to assist us in ways that these existing products weren't designed for. So rather than just tacking on some AI magic fairy dust, we're actually building new experiences and new interfaces from the ground up. And I think that's exciting. That's a lot more relevant. And it's also a lot more of a head scratcher in terms of the interface and the experience of that. How do we go about building it when it doesn't need to be traditional in any way? We're not just tacking on a feature. If we look at tools like ChatGTP, the mobile voice activated version, the experience is completely wild. It's so different to what we're used to. It's just a black dot that moves around. And they've recently updated it, and now you can customize it in various different ways, but it has us as designers, we need to think about the experience there. They're designing the voice of your assistant, the way that the assistant responds to you, what kind of feelings that's generating to you. And also, the very interesting thing is the interfaces are becoming extremely stripped back, but they're actually providing a lot more complexity than before. So maybe you just have one element, which is a chat interface and the input there, but it has the ability to morph into a million different states depending on the context, depending on what you give it, on what you ask for. It can pull information from anywhere and it can present that to you in like myriad different ways. So it's really trying to really step back and look at what is like the core feature of the interface and how can that become one component that can just mutate depending on the needs of the user at the time. And that's very interesting. It's led us personally in some of our design system work. Before, we used to have a library of components. And what we've noticed in our most recent project is the actual number of components is much reduced, but the complexity of those components is greatly reduced. We're building like more variations inside of those components than ever before. And we've built our most complex components that we ever have by a long distance just because they're multifunctional, the few elements that exist. So I think that's what's really interesting about thinking about that. That in one ways, our interfaces are much more reduced and Spartan, but they're much more interactive and they're richer in other ways than we're used to.